Well, hello, everybody. This is Rich Eisen, and you're at the Open Mic, where on a regular basis I chat with authors, editors, agents, publishers, all kinds of folks in the publishing industry. Today, I'm really thrilled because I have not only a great author and a great entrepreneur, but a good friend, Gina Mulligan, who's here for the second time, actually, for us to talk about her book, which you see behind her there, A Dear Friend. And we're going to talk about it a lot today. Gina is also a very accomplished author of other works as well, and we're going to touch on that a little bit as well. But I really want to talk about Dear Friend. And first thing, Gina, how are you doing today?
Good. Thank you. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing fabulous. I have to tell you, this is the first time, I've been doing these a long time. This is the first time I have ever had a guest on who I can say, I really wish there was absolutely no need for your book, and I hadn't bought as many copies of it as I have bought, and I didn't have to recommend it to people. And for anyone freaking out about that, you're going to tell us about it, because your book, of course, is a collection of letters written for women who are going through breast cancer treatment. And that's why I say I really wish there was no need for this. But as I've noted, I've bought it at 4 or 5 copies now. I just bought another one for another friend. So kudos for doing it. And I'll stop talking. Let me throw it over to you. Tell us more about Dear Friend and what inspired you to put this book together.
Well, sure. Well, first, I'm sorry to hear about your friend, and that's what the book was for. It's a gift book, really. The book is really based on my charity. So the charity, let me start with that first, because without the charity, there is no book. The charity is called Girls Love Mail, and so we collect handwritten letters for women who are newly diagnosed with breast cancer. So it's like letters to the troops, but we kind of like letters to breast cancer patients. So in that process, we began in 2011 collecting letters. And I think because I'm an author and so involved in books, I started seeing this content, right? Started getting letters and reading these letters. And so what really inspired this book was the content itself. Some of the letters were just extraordinary in just their personal stories, or just being so heartfelt. Some were really funny. And so they were just so touching and personal. And so early on, I thought, there's content here that I would love to get beyond the one recipient, because with the charity, one letter goes to one woman. So we could only reach so many women. But with a book, I knew we could reach so many more. And so I really wanted to really gather these letters together and be able to create a book. It did take 5 years to do that. So the Dear Friend book, which is very strategic behind me here, this big giant cardboard here, is 100 letters. It's 100 letters we selected out of 100,000 at the time, of letters we thought were just unique or personal in some way that would really carry the weight in the book to be a gift to someone, to say, you can get through this. And it was put together by Chronicle Books and out in 2017. And I think they did a beautiful job. It's a fully color book. They all recreated. There's a page in the front to write your own dedication. So the whole book is designed to be just that. It's Dear Friend. It is for you. It's for a gift. And you're right. I've had other people say, I wish I didn't have to buy a copy of this book, but I'm very glad it's here and available, that when I need it, it's something I can do. It's something I feel like it's tangible. I can give a friend. It's so hard when others are sick, what to do, what to give them.
Well, I will say, I can say, I wish I hadn't had to give it to so many, but I will tell you, I've heard back from everybody that got it. And I think the thing to me that resonates so much is that it is very heartfelt, and it is coming from such a good place. And, I mean, I've never been in your shoes, and I know you're a breast cancer survivor too. I've never been in your shoes. I can't relate to that on a personal level, right? But I think everybody wants to help. Most people, they want to help when a friend is in trouble or ill. You want to do something, and I think it's the real beauty of this is that, it's just a conduit, to show that you care about them, but in a way that actually has meaning. It has meaning to them. They can get something out of it that is more than any words I could ever say. So I really, I'm just, the more that I have been my experiences with the book, just as giving it to somebody, I have felt stronger and stronger about what a fabulous thing this is, and what a great gift that you've given to everybody in this situation. And you mentioned the letters. So I don't know how current this number is, but I saw from the website you've collected about 17,000 letters this year alone.
Yep.
Is that a normal amount for about this time of year? Has the pandemic it's had any impact on the numbers up or down?
That's fairly normal, actually. We've done so far. It's our 10th anniversary, actually. This year's our 10th anniversary, and we're at just about 200,000 letters since the beginning. So yeah, it's an amazing number. So 17,000 is about right. What we have seen though during the pandemic is a lot more groups writing letters. People who had to be home social distancing found us and thought, oh, this is perfect for our big giant groups that we can all write separately and then mail our letters in. So for us, what happened was our volunteers couldn't come in. We do get space donated at a local business. So the offices were closed, we couldn't come in, but everyone kept writing letters. So for us, it's the same volume, but it feels higher because we got so far behind. We had 2 months of no reading of letters at all. We do read every letter. And so we got behind. And then our cancer centers also had to stop handing out some letters. So they had about 2 months where they were not giving out letters. All the letters come in to us here at Girls Love Mail. We read them and they go out through cancer centers to the patients. And so during the pandemic, they're not seeing patients as regularly or not one-on-one, where they actually normally give the letters out. And so we just saw a big delay. So although it's a normal number for us, it has felt like an overwhelming number because it's just so behind. We normally have about three bins of letters to read, and we've had 7 right now to catch up on. So for our volunteers, it's been a lot.
I bet.
Yeah.
Well, describe the letter writing process for me, for anyone who might not be familiar, who might want to get involved, but not really be familiar with how it works. How does somebody get involved to write a letter if they want to do so for you?
Well, the first thing, really easiest thing, is to go to our website, and it's girlslovemail.com, and they can look there and get all the information. But really, it's very simple. I mean, it's really any paper or note card you have at home that will fit in our envelope. Their sizes are out there. And it really is, writing a letter to your dear friend or dear sister, and writing some words of encouragement. We have guidelines that are, what some things to say and what not to say. We've got sample letters and tips. It really is a matter of just taking some time and being thoughtful. And that really is all there is to it. It's a little bit daunting at first. The blank page can be a little scary. As writers, we know that. But once you try a couple, it gets easier. And then you just write your few words and then you mail them to us. We're based in Folsom. We do read them to make sure they match the guidelines. And then we take care of the rest and get them out to the patients. So it's a very straightforward program. And I think that's one of the reasons it has been successful. It's easy to explain. There's nothing to buy. I mean, it's the cost of a stamp. Take a blank piece of paper at home is fine. Some of our best letters have been on blank pages, honestly. It's the words. It's not the fancy stationery. It's what you say. And if you write from the heart, really, you can't go wrong.
Right. How many of these do you get to read yourself?
I still read some. I have 18 amazing volunteers. Without them, there is no way I can continue this program. It is very time consuming, but gosh, I don't know how many I read. I sit down and read at least once a week, and it just depends. Some are long, some are short. It just varies. We love opening the mail, though. We get mail from all over the place, and that's really fun. And you just never know what you're going to find. But yeah, gosh, it's an amazing experience opening the mail here. I wish I could describe it better than that, because you just get this package and you just have no idea. One package from second graders, and the next one's from retirement home. The next one's from the college group of sorority sisters, and the next is some boys in a math class. I mean, it's just this mixture of just one after another. It's such a unique experience.
Well, and speaking of that, I mean, I know that you have received some national attention for this. You've been on some national shows, and here in this country, but you've also got a lot of interaction from the international community as well. Did that surprise you at all?
Oh yeah, it really did. when I started, we started locally and thought, okay, we'll get some letters out and see how it goes. Fairly quickly, we got some media attention and broadened out through the US. And then, of course, the internet takes over. And it didn't surprise me, Canada was big letter writers early on. That made more sense, Canada, okay. UK, Australia, they speak English. That seemed pretty normal. But then we started getting letters from places, like Japan and Philippines and Malta. We had a letter from Nepal the other day. I mean, it still surprises me. I mean, it's just interesting that it's such a far reach. And my favorite story is a package from Japan that came in. And we're so excited from the foreign packages. The stamps are so colorful, and you know right away it's foreign with the airmail and all that. And we open it up. It's got a cover letter in English, and then the letters themselves were written in Spanish. That's the package from Japan. So, okay, so I'm already like, what is going on? My volunteers, what is this? So it turned out it was like a Japanese class that were studying Spanish, and they used Girls Love Mail program to practice their Spanish. They wrote these letters in Spanish. They also spoke English also, because the cover letter was in English, and they found us. And it was just a reminder of how caring is so universal. It is so global. It doesn't matter what language really you speak, although English is so prevalent. Most of our English letters do come in English, but a few in other languages. And it's just amazing. And even the ones that are not English as a first language, they are so just charming and heartfelt. And even if they're struggling with the language, you can still feel the caring coming through them. And I just love the letters that come from other places. I think the recipients love them. I mean, how wonderful it'd be to get a letter from Nepal if you're sitting in a campus out in Florida. I mean, wherever. I mean, it's just, gosh, it's just this global feel. It's wonderful.
Well, and I'm sure especially now, I mean, it has been a rough year and a half. And actually, not to get into all this, but of course, unless you've been hiding in a cave somewhere for the last 10 years, we're a very fractured country, and there's so much negativity. And you mentioned the internet. If you're on the internet, you're just overwhelmed with it. Just feels like the whole world's on fire. And it's another thing I really love and appreciate about this particular project of yours is that it reminds us that, as you said, caring is universal, concern is universal, because this disease is universal, and as much attention as it has received over the years. And I'm part of a group that raises money to fight brain cancer. I mean, we know nothing's ever fixed, nothing's ever solved, right? So it always requires people to care and to show concern. And so it must really feel good to be able to absorb yourself in something like this. That's, even though the root is something bad, the thing you're doing about it is something very positive. And it must feel good to do something positive.
Oh, very much so. We don't often get recipient feedback. When people get a letter, the first thing isn't to come to Girls Love Mail and to thank us. Usually it happens, 6 months plus later, but we do get thank yous from recipients, and it does feel really good to know what the letter meant to people. We've been told that the only support they had was this letter, and they kept it by their nightstand and read it every night before bed and took it to every treatment with them. It was all they had. We just recently got feedback that a woman was diagnosed for the 3rd time with cancer, and that this letter stopped them from harming themselves. They didn't want to go through treatment again. That letter kind of stopped them and made them realize, no, I can do this again. So yeah, it's a heartwarming feeling to know we're putting such positivity in the world. I also love the stories that people tell me that they're going off to do other programs now because they were inspired by this program to go start their own, breast cancer or not, just other good sparks in the world. And that, I just love that idea too. I think when you start doing more good in the world, it's a snowball of good positive energy. So I love to hear those stories as well, just like yours, I'm sure, with brain cancer studies and research and just the good feelings. I think we need more of that. In any way it speaks to you, really, is what it comes down to.
Well, I mean, you know how it is. You can respond to negative things with negativity, or you can try to find something good and do something positive. And I really admire any effort to turn, something bad into something good. And I guess there's plenty of people trying to do it the other way around. So you have all these letters now. Can we expect a volume 2 of Dear Friend anytime soon?
Probably not too soon. It did take a while to get the ones we have. What I'm working towards, and nothing's in the works quite yet, but I would love to see the book in another language, specifically Spanish. We get the requests for Spanish letters the most, and I would love to see this book translated. Chronicle so far hasn't really had any bites on it. We're trying to find another publisher in another language to really pick it up. And that would be really the next goal for me. I think the charity, as far as really expanding, would be in another language. And that really comes down to what we've talked to with recipients and the cancer centers. Just think about going through cancer treatment and when English is not your first language. We have done other languages. We've done Tagalog and Chinese, Cantonese, French and German, and then Spanish. And just the importance that if it was of those letters in their own first language. So I think the book being translated is important beyond another edition of this book. And we are still saving letters, though. We got one of our little bins here says potential books. So when we find a really good letter, we do save it out just in case, and we'll see where that goes. But
how many letters do you think you send out every year?
Every year we do about 20 to 25,000 letters a year, per year.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. That's well,
it's a lot.
Clearly there's a lot of need, but that's a fabulous number.
It's a vast number. It's a drop in the bucket to the need, unfortunately, but we're working on it. But we need obviously more letters, and there's still capacity and more volunteers. We can get more out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I mentioned earlier, of course, you're also, you were an author before you took up this project and started the nonprofit. And specifically in historical fiction, I wanted to ask, is there anything new on that front to report? Have you got any new works in progress, or is everything being overwhelmed by your entrepreneurship?
No, I'm still working slowly. It's kind of a balance. It's always a balancing act, but I am working on the third historical novel. And it's set in the turn of the century. And it's been interesting because it's a dark topic. It's not breast cancer. Luckily, I'm not going to do that, but it has to do with sex trafficking, human trafficking, and immigration issues. And I started this with a kind of a positive spin, not about trafficking, but about the turn of the century, and kind of stumbled on this human trafficking and immigration issues that could be what we face today. It's been interesting to do the research in the turn of the century, especially on human trafficking, and find stories that match what I see in documentaries I watch on Netflix that were filmed in 2017. It's the same stories of how women are trafficked into sex prostitution, the same lies, the same, we got jobs for you, you've got different lies being told. It really was the same in 1902, which is what the book is set in, as it is today. So it's been really interesting to do the research and be working on a historical novel that feels very timely. So a dark topic, but I'm hoping to put some kind of, hopefully a positive message of change. We'll see if we can do that in a novel. But so I am working on things. It's been slow. It's always a balancing act when you're trying to do more than one job, as you all know. And as most of us, I think most writers have more than one job.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you a follow-up on that. Just, I'm fascinated by research, of course. I'm a reporter by trade, so I probably over-research everything I do, but better than under-researching, right? But I have another writer friend in New York, and he recently wrote a book that was set in the 70s in the disco era, and it's a YA book, and it's done really well. But we talked about it a little bit, and he said, I grew up in the 70s. I never thought it would be that much research work. I mean, I grew up there, but you don't think about how every single little thing has to be changed, to 40, 50 years, or in your case, 120 years back. Talk a little bit about the research that goes into a novel like yours.
It's, I would say it's endless. It's interesting. You start with a premise and you kind of go from there. And I stumbled on the topic during research for a different novel and thought, okay, here's a good topic. And you start writing, and then you're writing away and think, do they have toasters in 1902? I mean, you don't think about what you're writing until you have to stop yourself. Got to go research that. Okay, it's not a coffee shop. They have coffee. Well, how did they make coffee in 1902? Or what the restrooms like? I mean, you have to stop and think about every little detail that you don't do in a novel, what you're writing in current. And so I think for me, the research becomes getting the basics of the story and then making notes of what I have to go back and really look at and all the little details. And it's the small details that take the most time for me, I think, like the toasters, like all those little small things. How did they do certain little things? What did the stoves look like? And my other novels were set farther back. They were at late 1800s. And I thought, well, how much different could it possibly be? Well, the answer is very different. The turn of the century has a huge change. And I should have known that, but wasn't really thinking about that. So here it comes, streetcars and just this huge change, electricity. And it was just, oh my gosh. So yeah, every little detail has to be researched. And what you do find is you do all this research and you find all these great little kernels and you put all this stuff in. And then you read the book and realize, oh, that's way too much details. No one wants to know all of this. And you take most of it back out. So now you're an expert and you have that feel of being expert without all the details in there. So you have to really enjoy learning about details that you never thought you'd want to know.
I was going to ask you that part of it because it is true. I think the problem when you do that much research and you addressed it quite eloquently is that you end up having so much more in detail than any reader is ever going to want to read. But with historical fiction, it's a double-edged sword, I think, because the people who really, really like historical fiction are the ones who are going to notice if you get anything wrong. Oh. And they're going to cap on you for getting the smallest thing wrong. So you can't have too much, you can't have too little, and what you have has to be absolutely right.
Dead on, exactly. Oh, that's so true. I'm only getting called on one thing in my first novel, a clothing item that wasn't, I just didn't mention it. See, I wasn't wrong, wasn't mentioned, and someone called me like, you really should have mentioned this piece of the clothing. But yeah, I know with my first novel, I really wanted to put sugar nippers. There's little things you pinch off sugar, a cone, sugars came in a cone, and you use nippers to pinch off the sugar. And dog nabbit, I wanted to put that in the book. I don't know why I got it's in there, but you have to pick and choose what you really want, what you think you can just leave off. And but yeah, you have to get it right. And that's why I'll never write Civil War. I've got a friend who does Civil War novels and they know their stuff. So you have to know your Civil War. I don't think I'll skip that, but
we talked about this a little bit at the beginning of the pandemic. And so there's been some time since then, and I wanted to address it. And I think when we all went into lockdown, it was tough on everybody. Everybody handled it a little differently. At the time, I was doing a series asking creative people how they were dealing with creativity issues during the pandemic. And of course, we talked then. How about since then? How has it been? Because I think we were maybe 2 or 3 months in. Now it's been another year. How has it been for you since then? Do you feel your creativity is flowing again? Or what's been the fallout for you from this year of COVID?
I know, right? No, it took, well, I was going through health issues the beginning of January into early 2020 anyway. So I wasn't working early, and then COVID hit, and then it was kind of slow to get back. And so, what got me going? I started focusing more on marketing for my first 2 books. And it was kind of a little bit double-edged sword because in August 2020 was the 100th anniversary of women's right to vote. And so my novel was set in that. And so I had a lot of things planned for that got canceled. And so I had a lot of marketing things that just went away. And so I thought, well, I don't want to throw it all away. So we did a lot of online marketing, BookBub and things like that. I was lucky enough to get involved in. So I started doing more marketing things, not writing, but starting to get myself back into being creative that way. And that led me, kind of got me fueled to get back into writing. And so now I'm back into writing, and I feel like I'm back to normal for the most part, being creative. But it was a slow go. I felt like it really took some kind of almost like ramping back up again. And because I had some health issues, I don't know if it was partly the health and COVID or just COVID. I don't know how it would have been because they were kind of simultaneous for me.
Right.
But all of my writer friends had the same kind of feelings about COVID. So it was just kind of a dead stop for life a little bit as far as just how daily life went. But I'm sure some writers, were able to really felt like they had time. I'm sure some writers felt like they had more time to write. I wish I had felt that way. It didn't feel that way for me, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think for a lot of folks, the routine was so blown up that and the uncertainty too, for the reason. I mean, people were very concerned about the possibility of dying is a big thing, I guess.
Well, dying, your jobs and people, all kinds of other reasons. Yeah, no, it was stressful. And yeah, it was just such a strange mix. And I guess for me, it was a fairly serious surgeries in January. And so it was just some strange time I think, for myself. But I'm glad it's all over. I'm glad we've moved on past some of that.
Yeah.
I know we're still struggling with some COVID issues, but certainly it's better than the beginning.
Yeah. Well, now we've talked a couple times over the years, actually several times over the years, about the publishing industry, how it's been, how it's evolving, and where it might be going. Virtually all those conversations happened before COVID.
Yeah.
Now, I think we're still trying to figure out whether, because one thing I know, I think we made a lot of presumptions about what it was going to do to the industry. And now, of course, then we saw actually in a lot of ways it helped in some ways because of people were bored and they were buying more books or whatever. But we have no idea, I guess, maybe about the long-term impact on the industry. You're a really thoughtful observer of the industry, the business end of it, the creative end of it, the marketing end of it. What's your perspective on this? Because you always have some really interesting thoughts on how the industry has evolved. How do you see it coming post-COVID over the next few years and beyond, maybe?
Well, I appreciate your wrapping up there. Let's see if I'm on the spot.
Yeah, let me ask you about that, theory of relativity or
Yeah,
whatever.
right. Exactly.
But I mean, you are involved in all this stuff. How do you feel about where we're all going with this?
Gosh, you see more readers. We saw more readers for sure during COVID, and I want to believe that's going to help. But what I see more, honestly, is we saw more streaming and Netflix and the rise of the television is king here. And I feel like as writers, we need to be a little more adaptable in what we write. I want to believe that I can, and writers in general, myself, can kind of transition from novels to scripts or to screenplays, and that storytelling is storytelling, and maybe we shouldn't get so tied to the format we write in, because I think the novel, not that it's going away, but I think we're going to see, we are seeing a shift. We are seeing a shift right now. And our biggest competition as novelists is not each other. It really is the other formats. I mean, the streaming services,
Yeah.
you look at all the Netflix and Hulu's and Prime and Disney Channel. I mean, there is so much content right now. And they're asking for more. I mean, there's a contest. If you watch all these contests for content, it's all with television related content. So I think as writers, we need to either kind of move along and try to change our formats. I don't think we should give up on the novel, but maybe we need to write both, be a little more flexible. I want to hope the novel won't go away and it'll come back. But I think the challenge we have is that it's an investment of time. Readers have to want to invest their time to read a novel. And right now we're seeing that they're not wanting to do that as much as to sit down and binge watch, which is also a lot of time. I mean, but it's more mindless time. And so I don't know. I don't want to give up on the novel. I'm a novelist and I love novels, and I hate to say that, but it just feels a little strange right now to see so much content going away from the novel. And
yeah, we've been training ourselves to have shorter and shorter attention spans for a long time. And I think you're right. I think I completely agree with you. I think our competition these days isn't so much each other. I mean, it is, but for eyeballs, it's not just the streaming and Netflix, it's video games and virtual reality. I mean, it's really an awful lot of stuff there. So I like to end here because we're kind of right on time. I like to end on what I hope is a fun question, what I mean to be a fun question. And I like to offer you the opportunity. Let's just say I had the ability to put you together in a room with one of the following three people. Who would, for a conversation, drinks, dinner, whatever you want, who would you choose and why? And the options I'm going to give you are Carrie Fisher, Jackie Kennedy Onassis, or David Lee Roth. One of those three people. You could pick any one of them, but just one. Who would you want to spend the evening with chatting up?
Wow. I think Jackie and I think I would pick Jackie. Probably just to hear about just the whole political world, her fashion. Gosh, I have to ask her about all her fashion. Yeah, I don't think I'd know what to talk to David Lee Roth about. I mean, I like music, but I would be totally at a loss. And Carrie Fisher seemed a little strange. So yeah, I'd have to go to Jackie. So based on those three, I think that's, yeah, narrowed down. Yeah, that would, oh gosh, that would be, I think I'd be so intimidated though. I probably wouldn't know what to say. I'd probably just,
I'm a political animal, and I think I'd be intimidated.
yeah,
talking to
yeah,
Jackie
I
on
would
this.
ask her. I'd just have to tell me some stories about your life. I think that would probably be all. And just, gosh, what was it like going from that political world to married to a billionaire? I wonder if that was transition was even, or was it a transition? Maybe it was seamless. I don't know.
I don't know. Kennedys were pretty wealthy too.
They were wealthy too. Yeah. So gosh, that would be an interesting evening, wouldn't it?
But then that would be fun.
Terrified.
Yeah, that'd be fun. Well, this has also been fun. Gina, thank you again, as always. I know we've talked about the book before, but I don't think we could talk about it enough. If you haven't become familiar with the book, and there is somebody in your life dealing with breast cancer, I cannot recommend this book highly enough. It's a incredibly valuable thing to offer to somebody who is probably scared and dealing with an awful lot of emotions. I really think it's one of those things that you should have top of mind. And let's hope that someday we won't have any need for this at all. That would be the greatest thing, right?
That is our biggest goal. We won't want any more letters ever again, and that would be great for us as well. So
absolutely. Well, this has been the Open Mic. Again, I'm Rich Ehisen. This was Gina Mulligan. Girls Love Mail is the name of the nonprofit. Dear Friend is the book. Please, if you have a need, look it up, and please order one. And until then, Gina, thank you again. I look forward to us having a coffee and being able to talk in person again someday. I hope it will not be too long. And until then, all of you, I will see you next week. I hope everybody didn't mind the sound of my puppy in the background here, trying to get into the frame, but I kept her out. So until then, we'll see you next time on the Open Mic.